Hey,
Hi.
Hello.
hi, hello. How Malvina? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Glad to be back.
Yeah, and we are excited today because we have Jeremy. Jeremy's going to be a regular guest, and so Jeremy is taking some time out of his busy schedule just to, hang with us tonight. So if he falls asleep, Malvina, you got to nudge him and sort of wake him up. He's already had a long day. He's from Columbus, Ohio. So, hi, Matt. Hi, Jeremy. Good to have you.
Hello, Mark and Malvina. It's great to be with you all again.
Yeah.
My Australian and San Diegan friends.
So, we are really we are doing wonderfully with technology because we're so spread out. In California, Ohio, and Australia. So I'm just
Yeah.
hoping I've got some building work happening around the house. So I'm just hoping I just ask the builders to be quiet for a little bit. So if you hear any noises going on, any sudden
Mm.
jackhammer noises or anything like this, you just know what's going on. So
I was wondering what all that hammering sound was.
yeah, yeah, it's not me hitting my head against the wall.
Ah.
So this is number three of our, in effect, our first 10-part series on the life of a seer. And so in the first session, we talked a bit about ourselves and introduced, and we dealt with shame and confusion. It's really, I think a lot of people were really getting some breakthroughs on that. Had some really good testimonies of people who were feeling the opposite of that, and that's what we want people to feel and to be understood. And because there's been so much misunderstanding about seeing and about seers and those sorts of things. And then last week we took our last time, the second one, we talked about different characteristics of seers. Right? We talked about some of the things that um, sort of can affect or be a part. Anxiety, high levels of stress. We talked about a lot of in Malvina's experience, a lot of seers have actually had traumatic births.
Yeah.
That they and we talked about some of the sorts of things that tend to happen. Emotional, sensitive. Being sensitive to atmospheres and experience some of those sorts of things. And actually, I told the story about how Jeremy had really helped me just prior to coming on that way about feeling overwhelmed. I was feeling overwhelmed. And actually, Jeremy, that was quite an insight for me because I had previously been able to understand when I'm in geographical locations.
Hmm.
So when I'm in a geographical location, I'm often impacted by the atmosphere. But one of the things that I've been coming to understand too is that relational connections, that the people can be long distances away, and that's happened. Just you helped me with that about that other thing about being overwhelmed. I
Yeah.
was overwhelmed and feeling overwhelmed because the people that I were working with were actually overwhelmed, and
Yeah.
their overwhelmingness was impacting me.
Yeah, well,
Um,
your connection really has no geographic limitations, right?
Right.
So you
mhm,
are actually connected to those people, and so
yep,
you can feel
yep,
those sensations, those feelings, and those
yep, yep,
thoughts, it can become overwhelming for you as well.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the spirit, we're not limited by space or time. So the
Yeah,
spirit really exists. So we can see present, future, past, even.
yeah,
So and seers will experience those kinds of things. So a lot of the time you may be experiencing something that's going to happen
mm,
and it doesn't make sense in the present time, or you may be feeling a friend
yeah,
that's, I don't know, in another country. I can feel Mark. I can say that. So like the day I texted him, I haven't heard from him forever, and it's like I knew how to. So there's a, how many of you may have known you have to call that friend
yes,
because something is going on. So in the spirit you get signals,
yes,
and seers are probably at a higher
yeah,
level.
yeah, yeah.
So the space is not a limitation, and
Yeah.
neither is time.
So
Yeah.
that's a good point, isn't it? Pay attention to those senses. Pay attention to those things that you have, the feelings of. It's not just the negative side, but the positive side as well. And by positive, I mean you have a sense that that person comes to your thinking. Do
Yeah.
something about it, because the more that you acknowledge it, I think the more that you value it, the sharper you become on that, and the more that you see those sorts of things.
Absolutely, Mark. And something that I've noticed for myself, this is not a rule per se, but it's just something that I have discovered in my own personal calling through being seasoned in reason of use, is that I will feel that generally for people I come in contact with. But for people organizations, or groups that God has assigned me to, it's even more often, it's more precise, it's more intense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's hard to let go.
Yeah, it
When
is.
it's an assignment, it goes on, it's a burden, and you just can't separate.
Yeah, I have a saying that the key to breakthrough is follow through.
Yeah.
So therefore, the way sometimes that you can let a sense of something lift is by actually actioning it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's so if you've got somewhat of a burden or something for a person or whatever else, that is often going to stay until you do something with it. It's like getting a prophetic pain in your body. Until you actually pray for somebody for that particular thing, it doesn't go away. And it's happened to me time and time again that I've been somewhere, Philippines ministering or whatever, and I've got a sudden pain in a part of my body, and I've called that out, prayed for it, and it's gone.
Yeah. Well, and if it's feelings of overwhelm or stress or whatever it is, see, the confusing thing is if you're not aware that is not yours, what you will do is you will feed it and you will give life to it.
Yeah.
You will accidentally fuel that in your own life, but the realization that, wait a second, this is not mine. This is somebody else's. This is the people that I've been caring for. This is their burdens. This is their overwhelm. This is their quote unquote stuff. Immediately the process of being able to just let that pass on by begins.
And one thing, I think we spoke about this the last episode. I've always defined the process as intimacy with the Lord. So if we recognize that we are seers, and hopefully some of the people that are watching can identify themselves as such. Some people are, and they haven't figured it out. So they're having all the sicknesses and pain in their body and thing, and they don't necessarily relate it to being a seer. So hopefully we will be able to help clarify a lot of that. But I do believe that a lot of times you feel let's say you get a headache, and is it mine or is it not mine? So there is a process of engaging with the Lord. Lord, is that you? Is it mine? Is it the guy next door? What is it? And in that process, it brings you closer to a conversation. And from my personal experience, it kind of, as I encounter the Lord, and I think I gave the testimony last time of my friend Lisa, I had this heaviness. I got to Portland like, oh my God, I have the worst. What is going on here? And you're in Portland. So the first thought is, I'm going to die here, And then she looked at me and she says, oh my Malvina, I see you have a pillar on your head. So there was something the Lord was doing. But the moment she told me what she saw, my headache was gone because I understood it. So I'm okay. If it's a pillar, I'll take it.
So that's something that we've been talking about, right? We've been talking about knowledge, words of knowledge. We've been talking about wisdom, the spirit of wisdom, which is the correct application of the knowledge. But we've also been talking about a spirit of understanding. That when you actually understand, and you two have both talked about understanding, when you understand this is mine or this is somebody else's.
Yes.
Right? When you understand what's going on. The fact is that this is not something to resist, but it's actually something to flow with. And when you get understanding, there comes a peace.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm sorry, Mark. Yeah.
No, go, Jeremy.
Yeah, but to your point, I mean, you're gonna fire me up and get me on a rant here, because That's been my I've been kind of shouting that from the rooftops for the last few years, is that in kind of prophetic worlds, prophetic circles, one of the biggest challenges that is being faced, and I'm not even sure that these circles are aware of this, is the lack of ability to understand, right? So
Yeah.
the way the Lord showed me is that there's basically, to oversimplify, and again, it's not a 3-step process, but I'm going to call it a 3-step process. It's catch it, get it, give it. Catching it means you learn to catch revelation, right? Whether you see it, whether you know it, whether you feel it in your body, however you catch it. You get it, meaning you understand it. You get the revelation. You cooperate with the person of wisdom to know what's going on, and then give it means to receive it, to manifest it, to bring it forth to the world, to share it, to verbalize it, to express it, right? So people are being taught en masse. There's books and teaching courses and conferences about how to catch revelation, how to see, how to get words of knowledge, how to hear, which is great, and then how to give it, how to talk to people, how to whatever. But there's very little about getting it. There's very little about understanding. And it's kind of, I hate to be dramatic, but to me, it's very concerning. It's wonderful that there's masses of people learning how to catch revelation. That's great. That needs to happen. That's a beautiful thing. But we're skipping a step, right? It's the understanding, and that's what we're talking about here. It's about understanding the revelation. Like, if you're a seer and you're a feeler, if you're one of these empaths, or whatever words you want to use, and you're spending time with people and you're catching the feelings, the sensations, the emotions, and the challenges and the physical pains that a person's dealing with, if you're not immediately jumping to, okay, what is the understanding here, right? That's Malvina. That's what you're talking about. I have a headache. I get off a plane and I have a headache. Well, you and your friend, she sees a pillar, she's getting understanding. She's seeing it. She's getting the understanding. She shares that with you, and it illuminates your heart, illuminates your mind, and boom, that headache goes, because you realize that headache's not yours.
Yeah, actually brought so much joy. I no longer have to worry about what is wrong with my head.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And so to my point there is, revelation without understanding, if it's expressed or if it's given, might actually be, I don't want to say worthless, that's a little bit extreme, but it certainly is not going to hit the mark, right? Because it needs to be married with understanding. It needs to be expressed through understanding, so that it can hit the bullseye.
Yeah. I think one thing, Jeremy, I love the way you stated that problem. To add to that is, to me, there is a responsibility to catching that revelation. And I don't know if we are teaching that either. In a lot of these places, everybody wants to be prophetic, and I teach you how to be this, and how you can see, and how you can, do all these things that can be very attractive in the body of Christ, because people like them. They bring people. But at the same time, there's stewarding of these mysteries that we shouldn't take lightly. And as I coach seers, that's one of the things that, first of all, they're tormented. Okay, well, listen, God is revealing things to you that he's not going to reveal anybody else. So the first thing is, you should be grateful that you are seeing, okay, even though it may not be pleasant. But also, what you do with that has an impact, not just to you, but also to the world around you. So learning that this is not a game, but also it's not a thing for people. This is a gift that's a vertical gift, ministering unto the Lord. Here is God, revealing the spiritual realm, revealing to you something that hasn't revealed to somebody else. So how we steward these gifts, to me, so thank you for saying that, first of all, because a lot of people don't say it publicly. So But I do believe that we are not stewarding it with the responsibility that it merits. We have to really recognize that you can make it or break it by giving somebody a revelation without any, there are people that are derailed in their life because they have no understanding, because they got a word, and then they build things around that word. And that's not what God was saying. He was saying something else, the same thing, but it had a different understanding. So
Yeah.
To me, it's about stewarding and responsibility. This is not a game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what really, really excites me, interests me, challenges me in all of that we're talking about too is that I don't think that we realize how creative God is and how creative we are. And we'll talk about this, probably the next time that you're with us, Jeremy. But it's interesting because there are so many different expressions of, for instance, when we talk about a seer. Last time we talked about that there are people who are seers, but they don't see with their eyes. They don't see with even the eyes of their heart. They operate much more from a feeling perspective. They're very, very sensitive in feeling. And they are seers because they're seeing something through their emotional part. Now, when you try to describe that, often to people, it's often very difficult to describe because you're trying to describe something that isn't all that describable, which sounds a lot like the kingdom, because what a lot of people like to try and do is to try and define something that's not definable.
It's like trying to grab water.
Yeah, or trying to grab the wind, or trying to determine where the wind's coming from.
Yeah.
And so I think that, often there are some things that we can give some description to, but I think if you're in a place where you're trying to bring something to your level or your place, your understanding, it is so often very difficult to do, because I think you have to first of all become very comfortable with mystery, right? You have to become okay with not understanding how certain things go or work or described or whatever, because the scripture doesn't describe every single thing, and because there's so many things that are not definable, and there's so many differences. Like, each one of us is very different, but we're also quite similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that's why, like, because each one of us is a steward of a calling, right? So each one of us walks people through this in different ways.
Yeah.
And Mark, you're talking about how essentially there's no formula to this thing, because it's almost like a language, but it's a language that takes many different forms. And so what we do with people, and that's why this is so interpersonal.
Yeah.
Like, this needs to be taught one-on-one. I mean, it can be taught, you can write books, you can do these things, but for someone who really wants to walk as a seer, they need a guide. And here's what I mean by that. We are looking for what I call reference points, not formulas, right? Because Mark, you were just discussing how you see is different than how I see. We might have some similarities. There's some crossover, but your language with God is unique to you, and mine's unique to me. So what we do is, when we're in relationship, and that's the beautiful thing about this, is because not only does it require a relationship with God, but it requires a relationship with each other. Mm-hmm. Because as we're walking through life and doing relationship with one another, Mark will do something, and I'll say, wait. Reference point, you're seeing right now.
Yeah.
Right? And you start to piece these reference points together, and a language starts to form.
Yeah.
You start to get form as all these data points get collected, and it starts to come together, and you start to realize, oh, this is my language. This is this is God's language to me. Now he can step outside of that. He can step underneath it, all around it. But ultimately what we're doing is we're walking together as a family to better understand ourselves, each other, and then encourage one another to have the reference points so that we can confidently walk in that language that God's given us.
Yeah. And you know, Mark, sorry, Mark, but you mentioned about understanding and what Jeremy just referred to. You have to remember we only see in part as well.
Yeah.
So the relational part is,
Yes.
my girlfriend had to see what I had in my head. I mean, God was speaking to me, but she saw one part I was not given. So the puzzle, so a lot of the time, is solved by interrelational, different revelations, and the understanding doesn't come until we've all come together and share.
That's right, Malvina. It's all, and that requires humility, a lot of humility, because the tendency in pride is, well, I don't see it. I don't see it, so
it's
therefore
mine.
It must not be true, right? Or if I can't see it, but the reality is Malvina, maybe you see it and I don't, right? And so because we walk in relationship, I trust you, and I trust that God is showing you, and He's telling me, listen to Malvina, and so you might speak it, and then later on, I might get the understanding. And so we partner, and Mark might go, awesome. Well, here's how we express it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Boom. Teamwork.
Yeah. There's also a part in this, if I could try to express it and use that illustration, or use the analogy that you were talking about, Jeremy, about language. I think that there's a language that seers recognize. It's like, when we first met, Jeremy, we understood each other, even though we didn't fully understood each other. We understood the language. And I think that there's almost different dialects within that Seer language. So that's more me, or that's more Jeremy, or what's that. But there's some general sorts of things that you pick at. It's just like, I would say this. I've noticed that other seers get me, and there's a lot of other people that don't quite get me. And I can talk about it, I can try and explain it to them, and they say, yeah, and they have this look sometimes like, okay, what's going on, what are you seeing, or what else? And they trust me because they know me, but they don't quite get it. But then I have other friends who are more seers, and they get me. They even like almost finish my sentences before I do. They can because they get it. They get that understanding. And so I think it's really important to have, like you said, relationships with people that can help you, that understand you, that also add the parts of the puzzle and pieces to the puzzle.
Mark, that's beautiful that you said that. There's a couple gentlemen that I get together with from time to time, and it's the three of us, two of them and me. And I was describing it to my wife, Shan, the other day. It's really profound. It's almost like music. It's almost like poetry.
Yeah.
It's like this flowy conversation where we are all just, it's almost like a dance verbally, where words come out and we're all just following the revelation, and it's back and forth and all around in every direction. It feels like music. It feels like poetry, and it's just a multi-hour conversation, and it's flowing. And I was trying to describe that to someone, and I was like, nobody taught us that. Yep. Nobody, and we didn't even, we came together from different places, and then just all started speaking, and it just clicks. It's this language that, to your point, Mark, and when you encounter that, it's so enriching. And if there are other people out there, like I suspect that there's a lot of people that are going to be drawn to this live stream, whether it's now or whether it's a year from now, because it's archived and it's there, but they're going to know what we're talking about. Yes. There's going to be some people who have experienced that, and there's going to be some people who maybe haven't experienced it yet, but something in them goes, wait, that just makes sense to me. I don't know why that makes sense to me. I maybe haven't experienced it, but that's just like very, very appealing to me. And that's what this time and these times and these 10 episodes and more and whatever it becomes of it. And really it's the birthing of it's connecting with people who had that within them, who maybe haven't had the chance to express that. Maybe no one's spoken that to them, or maybe no one's told them that's possible, or maybe they haven't had the awesome blessing of being in a triangle of people where it flows. But I do want to encourage that person, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to turn this to whoever's listening, but uh, if you long for that, it will appear in your life, because God did not create you with that gift within you to not give you an abundance of opportunities to connect with people, to have that fulfilled, and to be able to express that. So I just want to take a second to encourage anyone who's listening now, a year from now, or 5 years from now, that if that desire is within you, whether it's been expressed or not, let God fuel that fire. Like, nurture that fire and watch as he brings people to you to cultivate that fire, people who will want to draw from that fire, people who will want to stoke that fire. Anyways, I'm gonna pass it back off because I can sit here and go on and on and on.
Yeah, I got my friend here from Vacaville. This is my first question and my thoughts when receiving a word for whatever. Lord, should I give this, and or when? What is this information for? So I think we're meant to live in this relational world, in relationship with God and relationship with other people. So I think it's really good.
That is good. Can I speak to that real quick as well?
Yeah, you can speak to that. Yeah.
I would add a question even before that. What is this word?
Yeah.
What is this word, right? Because that's going from catching it to giving it. We're talking about understanding. So thank you for the word, Lord. Help me understand this word.
Yes.
And then
and
this word
Jeremy,
for?
I can even add something else.
Yeah.
Is that you, Lord? Because I've had many things, especially with my background. I came from a very occult background. So I had a very distorted view of what seeing was. I did way too many things. So my seeing gifts when I got saved was quite contaminated with images I shouldn't have in my head. Yeah. Therefore, I had to filter through my soul, my mind, that was completely distorted. So I had to walk it out. And the Lord put me through a ringer. That could be another show on how I actually restore, because it was pretty distorted. So one of the things is, I would ask, is that from the Lord today? Yeah. Because the enemy can really distract us with a lot of, and sometimes when you're in a region that can be quite oppressive, it can be distracting, because in the spirit, it's not like we have a selective only God and we will never see the bad part. It's all spiritual and it's all dancing around you, so a lot of the times, just because it's there doesn't mean it's mine. It's not for me to observe. It's there. I go to pretty dark regions. I can tell you there's all kinds of stuff. But if I were to engage with everything I see and feel, I would be totally ineffective. So the first question, part of my healing was, if it's not from you, I don't want it. So if it's not you, Lord, and I was doing some training for children at the time, I used to tell the kids, first sign of throw up or getting sick or a big headache or you're dizzy, stop. Is that the Lord? Because like you explained earlier, Jeremy, you can engage the thing and it's not even yours. So that's one thing. And then have the conversation with the Lord. The other thing is, you mentioned something about, having a group and interacting. The other part to that is it can be very healing. I've encountered many seers traumatized by their gift because of misunderstanding. I can use an example of a girl. She is a Muslim girl who she will see the suicide bombers before they blew themselves up. So in her culture in Iran, she was considered something demonic because every time she spoke it, it happened. Okay, so in that case, what you have is somebody at a little young age consider something evil. Okay, so because something wrong happens every time she said something. So imagine the trauma as she grew up of I am this horrible person who's killed people. And she had nothing to do with it. She was just giving the the knowledge of it at that moment. So the trauma had to be overcome to understand, no, look, what you're seeing, I saw, and having that relationship with her in a group of healthy seers became very, very healing for her. That trauma of childhood, that, everything I say causes bad things. I've had quite a few of those girls that see a house burn and then the house is gone. And, they feel like I caused it. So because no one has taught them. So having that interpersonal relationship can be so healing. Also, you don't feel weird. You don't feel like you're the only person with this problem, So those relationships can be very, very healthy.
Yeah. Here's some encouragement from Brandon, who says, this series has helped me so much. I'm learning so much about myself. Thank you. So.
Thank you, Brent.
Can I just sort of segue into another arena? Love what we're talking about, but I'm drawn by the painting behind you. I just keep seeing the word prophet, prophet there. So that's your painting, Jeremy?
Yeah. It is mine, and it is by me as well.
Okay, so it's yours, and you paint it. Oh, pretty cool.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's very good. I should just change the. Let's just change the layout.
It's bigger than you realize. It's
6
feet by 4 feet, I think.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So,
you get the idea.
So if we just that's drawing me. So I feel like I was trying to figure out how we can head in that way, because it's really good what we're talking about. But even in the context of what we're talking about, we do know that there are prophets, and we do know that there's the gift that operates, and there is a distinction between the calling and the operation of the gift, right? Yeah, and we know that the simplistic view is really hearing or seeing something, so it's receiving. And I think I love what you said about catch it, get it, and give it. I've never heard that before. I haven't heard you say that before, I don't think.
I wrote it in a book.
Oh, okay. That's right. You've written some books, haven't you?
A couple. 4.
Yeah, 3. 3 or 4? 4.
Yeah, I forget sometimes because it's been a while. But yeah.
But people can still get them, right?
Yeah, they're on Amazon.
Yeah, they're on Amazon.
Uh-huh.
Jeremy Mangashin. Go find his book. Books. But there's this difference between the calling, and I think that's something that we can try and describe a little bit. And one of the things that I like to see is that I think that the expression of those two things, the calling, very much the part of the person who's called, the prophet. The prophet is a calling. So that person becomes a gift. That person themselves is the gift to the people around about. How they operate through that, again, there's a lot of differences and prophets. There's no two prophets the same. Right? They do similar sorts of things, but they're individuals. And then the gifting of prophecy, now, whether that's perceived or whether you see something, and we're talking about seers, what you release, what you give out is the gift to people. And that's why we want to make sure that what you give out is a nice gift, a yummy gift. Right? It's a blessing gift. So what do you think about that? What do you think about, and we can talk a little bit more about the differences with prophet and the gift and the calling. What What do you got to say, Malvina, Jeremy?
Well, I first of all, some people are called to be prophets.
Yes.
And they may not see, but they are prophets. And
Yep.
again, to the point that we discussed earlier, I encourage the prophetic community to steward their gift and to know that there is a responsibility to it.
Yes.
Seers, they may not necessarily, a lot of time they get confused because they're not necessarily the prophet that's going to prophesy, like how we've defined the prophetic out there. A lot of the prophetic utterance, if you want to call it an utterance, is a language, we said, comes through, I feel this, I see this, I sense that. You were looking at the word prophet. I'm sure you're getting something. A lot of time we see a painting, we see, that's where the prophetic painting movement came from. There's so many things. I'm very visual. For me, a lot of time to hear the Lord, I hear him with my eyes, but that doesn't mean I thus says the Lord. That's not it. I'm getting a download from the Lord through what I'm seeing around me or feeling or sensing. So I think the expression of the gift, again, the Bible says everybody can prophesy, but that to me is a different category. We can all prophesy when the Holy Spirit moves. Anybody can do it, but that doesn't make you a seer. That doesn't make you a prophet. So we need to distinguish how the gifts operate through the individuals. And I think, Mark, you were the one who said earlier, don't limit the Lord. He can really do it any way he wants. I think that is something that we have to keep in mind. A lot of the time we want to make a formula to help people. Okay, here's the class. Step 1, step 2, step 3. But God can do anything he wants. He can use a donkey. And so he can use anything. So I think we have to be open that when the Lord moves, we are sensitive to his movement and accept it in any way that it comes. I find I can use myself as an example. As a seer, it's very comfortable for me to see, but he'll stretch me by putting me in a completely different environment. I don't see anything. I don't hear anything. And then I got to go figure out, what are you saying? And that really brings me to, I got to seek the Lord because I'm in trouble, and right now I'm going through that. I'm confessing, It's like, I have all these sensory things trying to hear, what are you saying? But I'm not hearing. My eyes are not hearing. So it's him developing other parts of my gifting, and it stretches me. And if I say, well, I didn't see it, then he must not be saying anything. I'm limiting God. He can use anything. So I want to encourage people to don't put God in a box. He was in a box once and killed a man.
Yeah, that's good. And anybody can be taught to prophesy. But in order to be a prophet, you have to hear from God. You have to personally be called by God.
Yes.
Someone can maybe call you out and speak to that. But if you don't hear it from God, I would hold that loosely.
Yes.
Because there's something for those who walk in the office of a prophet. There is this deep, deep knowing because God has shown you who you are and the gift and the calling that you walk in. And nobody can strip that away from you. No man gave that to you. God gave that to you.
Yes.
Now, will you prophesy? Yes. But there is a difference, right? In the office and the gift.
Yes.
And that's okay. A prophet's not better than other people. It's just a specific calling of an office that people walk in. And there's others that are great too. And it just so happens to be that that's one that we're a little bit more familiar with.
Yes. Yes.
One of the things that I've often said is, and I have a difficulty with people who will introduce themselves as prophet such and such. I have a big difficulty with that. First of all, I don't think that a title makes you something just because you are titled that. And I think that if you have to tell somebody something, you're probably not. because the scripture really clearly says the gift makes way for itself. So, people, one of the ways that I think that that you're a prophet is because other people recognize that.
Yep.
They recognize it. People that you trust, people that are trustworthy, recognize the prophet calling on you.
Yes.
And so I think if you're trying to make yourself to be something simply because you have a desire to be that, you probably you would probably do better at going to McDonald's and trying to become a hamburger. I think you'd have more success at that.
Mark, to your point, have you seen the Spider-Man meme? You all know what memes are, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry,
I'm not that old.
Okay, good. Gotcha. There's a Spider-Man meme of two Spider-Mans, and they're both pointing at each other, right? Like they're acknowledging they're the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, Malvina, do you know what Spider-Man is?
Yeah.
Okay, just kidding.
Listen, I told you.
But
it's been a long day.
There you go. No, but there's an acknowledgement, right? And Mark, to your point, when two prophets, if they were to walk in a room, they wouldn't even need to say anything. They would basically it'd be like Spider-Man pointing at one another. There's like a recognition because you can see it, because a prophet can read anointings. A prophet can see without, you don't even have to say a word, just knows who you are and knows what you walk in and can recognize authority. You could be dressed like a, I almost said bum, but I'll say it, bum. But you can have that calling on your life, and someone who can see will recognize, wait a minute.
Yeah.
The average person looking through human eyes would just see what someone would consider a bum, but someone who has eyes to see, Spider-Man, you're a prophet. You are, or whatever, So, Mark, I'm sorry I cut you off, but I just wanted to tag team with you on that.
I just felt the release of joy in that time. It's a fruit of the spirit.
Well, I'm glad I could educate y'all on what memes are.
Well, thank God for Jeremy. I mean, what would we do without him?
Understanding. There you go.
But one thing I wanted to say. I love John the Baptist. I like to use him as an example of what Jeremy just described. Because, a lot of the times people want, give me a biblical reference for what it is you're talking about and this and that. And I love John the Baptist because in his mother's belly, he felt the Lord and he jumped, and he had no business card, and he really didn't spoke. He didn't say anything. All that happened was a physical movement of a unborn baby. And there he is prophesying the presence. He felt the presence of the Messiah that wasn't even born either. So and his life is a lot like that. He's dressed like a bum, like you described it. He did not look, too churchy. Actually, from a line of a Levi that should have been in the temple, he didn't even go there. So his name was different. I mean, he was outside of the box. But yet everybody recognized the gift that he carried. Yeah. And I think he was a humble man who did weird things, but he was recognized that he knew what he needed to do. He had his moments of doubt, but he knew. So I love him as an example because it is the unorthodox example of what a seer is. Yeah.
One of the things that you've said a lot, Malvina, and I agree with you, it's like seers have to learn how to manage, whether you're a prophet or whether you're operating within the gift. You have to learn how to manage that which God has given you rather than be managed by it.
By the gift. Yeah.
Right, by the gift. And so it's learning how to operate in it. I've been doing this for lots of years, and I still am learning things. And I think it's important to stay teachable. It's important to have, because with different dimensions of learning. So you're not just learning the same thing, but it's learning about, how does this operate? How do I communicate these things? Like Jeremy said, how do I catch it? How do I
Yes.
get it? And how do I give it? And
Yes.
I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that, Jeremy. That's a really. I hope you haven't.
Well, Mark, to what you just said about stewarding the gift. So I should say not the gift, stewarding the revelation, because the gift is there, but when it comes and you feel it, or you see it, or you're activated, or you feel the bubbling inside, even for prophets, what matter is, why is God giving me this?
Yeah.
What am I to do with it?
Yeah.
What's the purpose of it? Again, for seers, it can be very painful sometimes physically. And learning that this is part of
Marika, she obviously you know her, Malvina. She says,
I know Marika.
Has been a huge revelation. I had no idea I had this gift, so it's been very confusing. I've listened to each of these episodes 3 times, and I know Malvina. Thank you for putting these episodes on. I want to learn how to steward these gifts, and that's what we're talking about. I want to steward these gifts and also encourage others.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So that's a good jumping off point, Mark. You were just talking about you stewarding the gift. Well, just to add to that, in stewarding the gift, you have to learn to steward your own emotions, but also steward the emotions of others, because we've been talking about that since the beginning, is feeling other people's feelings and realizing that they're not yours to own. And that's stewarding someone else's emotions, right? By stewarding your own, by learning how to differentiate what's yours and what isn't.
Yes. And Jeremy, not just others, regions,
that's
the
right.
world.
That's right.
Because, and one of the things is when Mark and I started talking about doing this, one of the things that I felt in my spirit is, things are changing faster than we can even process in the world, So I do believe this is a season where seers are going to be activated. I promise you that there are huge dreams that are coming down right now. A lot of people are having heavy duty dreams, end time dreams. It's like a download. It's Joel 2. I'm going to pour down my spirit and boom, so in all flesh. So a lot of the times you get all that information and you're going to have to steward not just your emotions, the emotion of those around you that are also going to, have the dreams and they're reacting to it. But also, for me especially, the Lord talks to me very globally sometimes. And, there may be things in other nations that I've never been at. I don't even know people there, but I'll feel certain things. And then it can be quite overwhelming if you don't have context. We go back to understanding.
That's a great point, Malvina, especially since 2020. What happened in 2020? COVID. And what happened to the globe? The entire globe was traumatized and put under a spell of fear.
Yes.
That there was this invisible virus. And I'm not downplaying COVID. But the point is that the fear was spread, a contagion worse than COVID, which was fear, and trauma was put over planet Earth. And people don't really seem to be getting the impact that has had, and that it's still there, and we're still seeing the impacts of it. And we're seeing the backlash from it now, the chaos that's breaking loose. It's a result of people being traumatized.
Yes.
And, to your point, Malvina, for someone who sees not only regionally and feels, but globally, I mean, it's everywhere. It's heavy. Yes. It's overwhelming.
Yes. And also, the reality of the impact. So there are levels of revelation, because I can look at it. The other day I was telling to somebody, I'm going to have to change my contact list. I'm going to probably date myself because I have so many friends who died in the older generation, more impacted. And it actually affected my contact list. because it's people that I regularly spoke with and people you love. So, you know, that's an emotion in the natural, because you have relationship with people. But on top of that, you have the emotions that the Lord is revealing to you in addition to your own personal emotions. So now we have two things that I have to juggle. And then comes the regional. If I'm in Portland, for example, I was there a couple of weeks ago or a week ago. That is intense. So now you have your emotions plus the emotion of those around you. You're speaking somewhere. If you walk in a church or, you know, somebody you're ministering to, and then you have a region, and, you know, so it can build up to many levels. So it's not a single, sometimes a single revelation. It can get complex. If you're on assignment, or that when I'm on assignment, it becomes really obsessive. I have to be very careful because I can become, I can't let it down. It's constant. It's all that's in my head. I am repeating the movie, you know, and my husband is talking to me and I don't even know what he's saying, because I am in my head, just playing what the Lord is showing me, you know. So it's learning to steward what's coming down and be logical sometimes, if possible.
So can I go back to something, because
yes,
and we've said this a number of times, and I think it's sort of a key thing, and particularly as we start to wind up at this particular session, and I think it's this understanding. For me, when I'm feeling something, and it's other people's stuff generally, or it's geographical or whatever else, when I understand that it is somewhere else or what it is, it just brings it into a place where I feel freedom.
correct.
Particularly the very first thing that the enemy exploits is to try and convince you it's yours. Mm-hmm. And so when you convince it's yours, you take ownership of it, you possess it, and therefore its whole purpose is to take you into depression. It's to take you into a place where you feel bound and captive, and you feel something is wrong, and you beat yourself up because the enemy is accuser of brethren. He wants to accuse you. He wants to have you accusing yourself.
Yep.
So that when understanding comes, it's liberating. It's like, you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. The truth being the understanding the Holy Spirit's going to bring you. And that's why it's important to have some people in your life who can help you with understanding.
Yeah.
I just said to you, a couple of recent events for me, and I'm amazed at it because I keep having similar sorts of experiences of that sort of thing that happens. I think there's just different dimensions of it, but the things that have helped me was understanding. So I think the spirit of understanding is really important. And I think it's something that it's really important for people to say yes to the Holy Spirit. Bring me understanding. Give me understanding. Help me to get what's going on. And to be in a place where you're asking for that. Because, it says, for instance, for wisdom, if any of you lacks wisdom, ask for it. And believe that you're going to operate in it, and you start to operate in it. I think it's the same with understanding. If you lack understanding, ask for understanding, believe that you're getting it.
Yes.
But there's some things that you can do is to have understanding people, or people that can help bring understanding to you in your life, and cultivate those people.
Yeah. Well, you
develop
know what?
Relationship with those people.
Yeah, and you know one thing, Mark, because and I'm going to use an extreme case. There are situations, let's say John the Apostle in the island of Patmos. Mm-hmm. Okay, so here's the ultimate seer. And I do believe that he was isolated because it was too much. Okay, you couldn't have relationship. When you're going to get that level of relationship I was explaining earlier, when it gets intense and obsessive for me, I'm no good relationally, because I'm not necessarily logical, or I cannot engage in a conversation and be logical because I'm OCDing over the revelation that I'm getting. And it can be, I'm obsessing over it. So I'm going to talk about it, and I need to hold on to it because it's all I see. So John the Apostle is a great example of someone he was mature, and I think the Lord saved him for that. For that was his ultimate calling. He was the beloved disciple, though. There was an intimacy. We talked about that at the beginning with the Lord that was unique. His understanding of the love he had for the Lord. So he was prepared and equipped to receive something he would never understand. Even though there was explanation in between, the seals are broken and this is a little bit of here and a little bit of that. But there was not necessarily, he never saw what he meant. He never understood what he saw, is what I'm saying. So, I think there are higher levels of revelation at a certain point where the Lord not necessarily, you can't handle the truth, and he'll hold it from you. And we are going to have to develop a certain, what's the word I'm looking for? We're going to have to be strong and mature to handle it without understanding and carry it until it matures and it's time. Now, he told him, write it down. So for some people, be like, Jeremy, you write so many books or whatever. For other people, be a movie or something. There'll be forms in which I believe in the future, these things will be captured. Because I think the seers are being activated and there will be quite a bit of revelation in the coming days. So, there are people that are going to receive huge assignments that even if you have a relationship with others and want to talk about it, there may not be a lot of understanding. So I wanted to throw that in. So, everybody's, we're going to gain understanding and we're going to gain it. Yes, most of the times we do, but there are high level assignments. And I use John the Apostle for that, where he got the ultimate revelation. Here's the book of Revelation. But he wasn't necessarily previewed to what that meant. And he had to write it down. He had to capture it. He had to be obedient. And I believe that he was isolated because that's the only way he would have been good socially. You get that kind of revelation, you're no good. So just wanted to throw that in because I think that's another level of a seeing gift, but it may be for the next.
Jeremy, we're about to finish up. It's gone quick.
It has.
So Jeremy, you anything that you want to add to that? What we've been talking about today?
No, I mean, I think this has been. It's been good. We talked about what it's like to walk individually. We talked about what it's like to walk collectively in a relationship. And I think that's important to remember is that you're not meant to be isolated. And we discussed sometimes being a seer, you feel isolated and you don't feel understood. And so it's easier to hide and not be seen, even though you see. But it's important to let yourself be seen and known and to bring your gift and allow your gift to flourish because we're better together than we are alone.
And that's a very good point to finish on. I don't think either of us need to add to that. That's a really good point to think on. So thank you guys. Thank you for today. Jeremy, you're welcome anytime. You know that. And we'll look forward to the next time that you're on. Malvina, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Jeremy.
Once again. And we'll be back in 2 weeks' time. Same channel. Same Bat channel. You know who Batman is, Jeremy?
No. Does he do memes?
I knew you were going to get back.
Does he do memes?
Yeah, I'm sure he does. Anyway, guys, thank you very much. And in 2 weeks' time, we'll be back again. At least Malvina and I will be. And thanks, Jeremy. Thanks,
Mark.
Come sharing with us.
Appreciate you having me. Malvina, great to see you today.
Great seeing you, Jeremy.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Thanks
Bye.
for coming.